Okay, so hello everyone. Hope you are having a great day here at the conf. So today I'm going to talk to you about the project AMP. I'll try to explain what it is, how it works, what is the problem with AMP, if there's any problem with AMP, and I'll try to explain to you the parts that I consider to be harmful to the open web. So, first of all, my name is Vitor Talaia. I'm a developer at Codeminer for 2. This is my handle on most of the social networks. So if you want to find me on the internet to talk, discuss, or belittle me, anyway, you could just search for this handle and you're probably gonna find me. So I'm from Sorocaba. It's a city about 60 miles away from here, and we have pretty weird shit there. I mean, this is for you, for those who don't know, this is a giant cockroach that was found in the sewers of the city. It has nothing to do with a cockroach, actually. It is actually kind of a crustacean that was there. But anyway, it's a giant cockroach. And it's pretty weird. But we do have a lot of cool creatures as well. I mean, look at these fellows. They're pretty good. Even though they carry that star tick, that can give you the maculosa fever, but they're still cool. But we do also have a lot of cool things in the city. This is the best coxinha in the world, I can assure you. But even the good things in Sorocaba somehow turn to be weird again. So this is a pizza made of coxinha. So the topping of the pizza is the same of the inside of the coxinha, so it's pretty weird. But okay, let's get to the topic. So, what is AMP in a way? So, for those who don't know what AMP is, AMP stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages, and it is a project that was released in 2016 by Google, and it has as a goal to speed up the mobile web. So, it tries to make the mobile websites faster in those smaller devices that has a lot of trouble with resources and memory and processing and whatever. So it was led by Google, which caused many to think it was Google's response to Facebook instant articles, which basically it is, as you see, but they keep saying that it's not. So, before speaking about AMP itself, I'm gonna try to show you some of the problems that AMP's trying to solve. So, I'm sure that there are a lot more of problems than the ones I'll show here, but these one are the ones that annoy me the most. So, the first one is that the average mobile page takes 19 seconds to load, according to this Google research in the bottom of the slide. And this very same research said that more than half of the users will leave our page if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. So we have here a gap of 16 seconds to break. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of time that you need to oh sorry that we need to speed up our sites to make it faster and to make it good on mobile devices. So the second one is pretty common. Probably everyone here had already experienced this kind of problem before. That a page loading a lot of scripts that somehow freeze the browser for rendering the page. So you try to scroll, you try to click on things, you try to interact with the page, but you're not able because of the website carries a lot of stuff, a lot of ads, a lot of third-party scripts that makes the sites pretty bloated, and it will eventually freeze the browser. Oh, okay, cool. This one is also sadly a common problem on mobile devices. It's called flash of unstyled content. It happens when the resources that are needed to display a page are not loaded yet, but the page itself, the content of the page, is displayed already. So what happens here is that when I access this page, the content itself, I mean the text, is there, but some style sheets, some images, some scripts, I don't know. Some resources are not loaded yet, and when they load out of nowhere, the content shifts. So the page starts to jump around, and you are lost. You don't know where you are, and etc. Okay, so now that you know some of the problems that AMP's trying to solve, let's see how it works. So the AMP project's basically divided into three parts. The first one is called the AMP HTML spec. It's basically a subset of HTML that will provide you some functionality that you don't have natively. So basically what I have here is a bunch of web components that will deliver you some functions, some functionality that you don't have native on the browser. The second part of AMP is called the AMP.js library. And it will basically provide those components that I just said. So they will implement it for you. So instead of using like an image tag, you're going to use amp/img tag to use that. And the browser doesn't know what it is. So this is the library that will provide you this kind of components to be used in your page. And the third one, as probably the most controversial one, is the AMP cache. It is basically Google servers that will fetch the AMP documents, provide some optimizations to the documents, cache it, and then serve it to our customers. So the problem here is on this phrase. If you pay attention, I'll even read it again. It's apply a set of optimizations to the page. It caches it, and it will deliver it. This is the part that I want you to focus on. Google servers are going to deliver your pages. It doesn't mean it is Google itself. You can build your own server cache. You have to follow some specific rules, some specific guidelines. But if you don't have the time, if you don't have the resources, especially human and I don't know, money, you're gonna probably using Google or Cloudflare or something like this. So this is the diagram that basically shows how AMP tries to speed things up. So this is really simple. There's a lot of more things happening here, but basically you have your regular HTML version, and you need to create a new version of your article, of your page, an AMP version of it, and it will be cached by this Google cache here, this blue thing, and it will parse it, it will be validated, and then it will be served when a user accesses, for example, Google search or Bing search or the Twitter feed. They're probably going to be served the AMP version instead. So this is a way for the platforms to know if a specific link might have a probably faster version of it available. So let's imagine that we want to create a very simple AMP page. So the first thing that we need to do is to add this AMP keyword here, or the lightning bolt emoji, if you want to the roots of your website. This is required and it will be validated as an AMP page from now on. And another important thing to add is this script here. It is the JS library that will provide you the components that you need to create AMP pages. And there's also the need to add this style tags here. The first one is called the AMP boilerplate. This is just a trick that AMP uses to try to not solve the problem of flashing of unstyled content. So it basically will hide everything on the page. It will just display blank, and after the JS library is loaded, it will reveal the page. So you got nothing on the page, and then out of nowhere you have the whole page add-ons. And there's also this one. There's another style tag called AMP custom. This is where your style should be embedded. Note that I'm saying embedded. You can link another style sheet to it. You can point to external file unless it is a font family, but you don't want to do this. But you're not allowed actually to import external files, external CSS files. You need to put your styles inside this tag. And the problem, it's not actually a problem, but you are limited to 50 kilobytes of styles here. So it's actually, um, you don't have enough code to build your page in a full and beautiful way. You need to keep within this limit, within this range of 50 kilobytes. And every page must have only one of these style sheets, so you can try to fool Google by adding two or three of them. They are going to be ignored. And if you continue to build our page, you're going to note that most of HTML tags are valid AMP, but some of them are removed, like script or object or applet, and some of them are replaced by equivalent web components, such as the AMP img tag. If you want to display an image on your site, you're not going to use the img tag, you're going to use the AMP img tag. And you also need to provide this no script here as a fallback. So if the browser doesn't have JavaScript enabled, the user will still be able to see your image, but not on the AMP version. It'll be just a regular image. And just a note here, I first gave this talk in March this year in Redwood City. So I was pretty confident that Brazil would win the World Cup. So if you pay attention here, we have this Brazil World Cup champions, but you know that's not true anymore. And after that, you need to validate your page. So only validated AMP pages, AMP documents will be delivered to the consumers. So you need to create a server. It can be local or not. And you need to append this hashtag development equals 1 to your URL. And you will try to execute some scripts, some calculations there, and it will say to you if it's a valid document or not. So the last thing you need to make your page discoverable by AMP is to create a link between your two versions of the site. So if you have a regular website and an AMP version, you need to create a link from the no-AMP version to the AMP version and the vice versa. And that's it. Your page can now be served from Google's cache, and it will be probably faster than a full application with a lot of features and cool stuff. It'll be more simple, of course, but it will be faster. This is the comparison of the same site using the AMP version and the non-AMP version. And as you can see, the images, the styles, and everything else looks more or less the same, but the first one loads pretty fast than the other one. So now let's talk about some of the good parts of AMP. Keep in mind that these techniques that I'll talk now are not AMP only, they are not AMP specific, so they are kind of a guideline that AMP uses and enforces the pages to follow, and they're pretty basic as you can see. So the first thing I want to talk is that third-party JS will run in a sandbox. So it's pretty well known that especially ads libraries call a lot of document.write, and this can be load even more sync scripts, and it will start to create a waterfall of scripts that are loading after each other and will make your site bloated. So AMP tries to solve this by only allowing third-party JavaScript to be run inside of an iframe. So they can still be causing some problems with document.write calls, but they will be only affecting the iframe area. They are not affecting the whole page. So you have a little gain here, and this is good. And another good practice is to prioritize the content of the first viewport, the well-known above the fold content. So this is good because users will have the perception that a website is faster than what it than it is actually. So it will appear to the users that the page will load faster than it is actually loading. But it's a cool thing to do anyway. And this one is cool. It's called this text layout sizing. So when using AMP, when you want to add some resources to your page, it can be a video or an ad, an image, anyway, you need to specify the height and the width of this element. So the AMP cache will read this page, will read this document, it will apply this set of optimizations, and one of these optimizations is determining the size of each element on the page. So this helps to avoid that flash of unstyled content when you have these images and these videos and even an ad here on this page. You can see that even though they're not on the page yet, the space that they will occupy are already taken. So when they load, it won't shift the page up or back or down. And the MJS library has a lot of components to it, but some of them you need to add from an external source. So you can add more functionality as you need it. So if you want to use, for example, an audio controller or a video player or a carousel in this case, you can add a specific component created by the M team or for someone that knows how to write AMP components. You can add those scripts to your page and then you can use it in your page. So this is good because you're going to deliver only the things that are actually used on the page. You don't need to have a bloated single file, a single core of the library containing everything. So this topic is related to the last. And as you can see here, when adding some new functionality, some new script, you must add this async attributes here. This is good because the browser will load these resources in almost in a background job. So it will not cause the HTML rendering to be stopped and then loading the resources and then continue to parse the HTML. As you can see here in those graphs, the HTML parsing, the blue bar, kept going even when you're fetching the script. So the execution here, it will be the same because the time to execute those scripts will be ever the same, but the time to fetch here will not block the HTML parsing. So this is good. And as I said, these are not AMP-only techniques. One could create a website and deliver it with this very same techniques, and even though not using AMP. There's nothing new on these techniques. But I think they are really cool guide of how to write fast websites that will perform pretty well on mobile devices. And I also like this quote here from Jeremy Keefe when he says that it's not so much about what AMP does, it's more about what it doesn't allow you to do. So what is basically saying that AMP doesn't allow you to mess up with your page. So it's basically that. Now let's see some of, in my opinion, some of the bad parts of AMP. So the first one is the most common and regular, is that your page is not being served from your servers. So when you are searching something on the internet and you went up on the Google search result page and you click on a link on an AMP link, it will actually just create a modal inside of this page, fetch your prefetch actually your content, and display it inside of this model. So your users never left Google. They never went to your website. And following this previous topic, AMP may seem like just one more rendering target, just one more kind of content prioritization, content syndication, sorry. So why would be AMP different from Facebook Instant Articles and Apple News if you need to display your content inside those applications, not in your own website? So, since the AMP HTML spec has limitations on some tags and some CSS, it turns out that most AMP pages, specifically talking about media and publishers, the pages will tend to look more or less the same. So, as you can see here, we have three different sites from different media publishers that basically have the same layout. And in some way, Google seems at least to be trying to push people to display content in a Google way, with those bars and using material Y and etc. And with the announcement of things like AMP histories and AMP for email and etc., Google seems to be more preoccupied to chase features that Facebook or Instagram or Apple has than trying to actually help people to build fast websites. And since AMP doesn't allow you to create arbitrary and your own scripts, you kind of are locked in a set of components, in a set of functionality that you're going to use. So let's imagine that you don't use Google Analytics for tracking. If you use your own analytics systems. So if you want to create an AMP version of it, you first need to create an AMP component that need to adhere to the conditions of Google and need to adhere to the rules of Google. And just after that, you can start making your website by importing the file. So the first components that will be created on some how can I say, on some areas, like YouTube is a video player. You have Vimeo, you have, I don't know, Dailymotion, but the first one to be created was YouTube. Analytics, you have, I don't know, pretty huge number of analytics tools, but the first one to be created was Google Analytics. So it tends to be more centralized on AMP tools, on AMP features. On AMP now, sorry, on Google tools. Okay, so finally, it's time to see or to know or to reinforce some of the dirtiest parts of AMP, of the project. So the web as we know it is dying. That was André Stout said on his talk last year on Brazil.js. I really recommend you to watch his talk. It's pretty good. If you are more of a reading person, you can go to his website, and he has a series of blog posts covering basically the same topics that he covered on this talk. So what he says on this talk is that most of the web traffic goes through two major groups of websites, and those are Google websites and Facebook websites. So the AMP project may be one more kind of centralization of content on the internet. So if you're using Facebook's instant article feature, if you're using it right now, you know that you need to deliver to Facebook your styles and your content. And when a user clicks on an instant article on the Facebook app, you just load this contents from was not sorry from Facebook servers and will display it to your users. And Google kept saying that AMP is different from Instant Pages and Apple News by saying that AMP is an open source project that has nothing to do with Google, you can contribute into it, but in reality, you are delivering your content, your text, your styles, your branding to Google. So this one is quite easy to talk about, and Google kept saying that AMP will not affect the search rankings. So if you choose to not use AMP, you're not going to be penalized for it. But how could it not be affecting the search? You have on the top of the first page a big and nice carousel called Top Stories that only display AMP content. It's a bit of controversial. So even though the carousel didn't exist, the AMP documents have this lightning bolt sign, as you can see on the image. And this lightning bolt sign is only given to a page if it is an AMP document, if it follows the Google guidelines, if it's served from Google's or Cloudflare servers. So they're basically given those places on the top carousel and this lightning bolt sign as a reward, not to be fast, but just to be using AMP. That's the point. So, as I just said, AMP is currently the only way that you can appear on this nice and big top stars carousel. And I think 2 days ago, Bing also started to display this kind of carousel with a lot of news and media stuff. But it also uses AMP, so it is still valid, this sentence here. AMP is still the only way to appear on this kind of spotlight on search engine. So the discussion is not about performance anymore. It's about SEO. It's about being top ranked on the search engine. Not about making websites faster, not about consuming less resource from mobile users. So media publishers, especially, are pushed to use those technologies. I said Facebook instant articles, Apple News, and AMP, just not lose to their competitors. So if you are Folha de São Paulo and Estadão starts to use AMP, Estadão will start to show up and before you on the search engine. So they will eventually have more views and it will generate more revenue from Estadão than you, Folha, not using AMP. So you are kind of forced to use it if you want to be rewarded with this carousel and this lightning bolt sign as well. So this is so harmful to the open web that this letter was created by a group of people and also signed by this group of people. And it basically says that Google should provide the same benefits that AMP pages have to non-AMP pages that meet specific criterion and a neutral performance metric. So it will basically allow people to choose whatever technology they want to, whatever technique they want to, as long as they meet the specific criterion of loading fast and consuming less resources on mobile devices. And since the page layout is somewhat limited, websites, as I said before, tend to look more or less the same. So this can lead to some very big problems as seen on US 2016 elections. So if you look at this first image here of this site, you can assume by just looking to it that it's not a real and actual website that is transforming that is publishing something that is backed. So you can see that it has some, I don't know what it is. Looks like a pool, and the title is written all in uppercase. And you have here, oh sorry, you have here some 70 news Facebook page, just some likes. But if you look on the end version, especially to the elderly, especially to the children, to the ones with less instruction, it looks like a real website, a real news website. So if you look on New York Times, if you look on, I don't know, the Washington Post, and if you look at this site, there's still some difference that you can spot, but they look more or less the same. But the biggest problem here is not the look, is not how the page looks like. The biggest problem here is that this very same page was displayed on the top carousel on the first Google page. So electors started to search. Oh, okay, let's see if really won on the public vote, and they were delivered this content on that same carousel together with, I don't know, maybe New York Times or Washington Post, but they were delivered this very same website here that is, as you can see, fake news. So, okay, let's stop to belittle Google. Let's talk about something on the future of AMP that can be good. So I think on January and February, the AMP team, led by Maut Ubel, published two interesting articles about the future of the project. The first one was about a possible solution for the URL problem. So when you access an AMP page and you hit the address bar, you're going to see google.com, not yoursite.com. So they're trying to solve this problem by using an emerging web standard called web packaging. It is basically a way of you creating a package like a zip file, and it can be signed, it can be verified, and by using this web standard, AMP could definitely use the URL of the actual website instead of showing Google's. And the second one was also about the using of web packaging. But now the goal is to make it possible to check if a page is fast enough to be placed on this top star carousel and to earn this lightning bolt sign. So the goal here is to allow people to use any tool, any technique that they want to use, but be placed on the same spots that were before AMP only. So, as I said before, those pages will need to meet specific criteria for their performance, but they will be free to choose any tool or technology that they want to. So, I like to consider AMP as a wake-up call instead of a final solution for the problem of mobile websites. So it brought to discussion some interest topics, but in my opinion, it is far from being the best way of dealing with this problem. So I really think that we can make a faster web that will perform great on mobile devices, but will not be harmful as AMP is right now at this time. And I mean, you don't need Google to tell you what you need to do. This room here is full of people that are capable of using their brains to create a lot of cool stuff. So you don't need Google babysitting you to solve a specific problem. So I'd like to leave this quote here from Teens Cladic website that pretty much sums up the feeling that the web community has to AMP. Okay. We need to encourage and be encouraged to build fast websites, not to use a specific framework or tool. It is like if I don't know, talking to you, so you need to use React to build fast websites. This is not true. It can be true, but it's not some percent real true. You can build fast websites by using anything that you want to, as long as you know what you're doing and you know how to extract metrics from it and you know how to apply some techniques, as seen here, to your website. And this sentence is really good. I mean, if you're not paying attention right now, the only thing that you need to know about this talk is this: let's incentivize the goal, not the tool. Let's make fast websites and not just pushing people to use some framework or tool. And thank you.